Hi everyone, welcome to Greenomix World webinar series. Today we are going to discuss on the topic called business model for microgrid and mini-grid for rural markets. Thank you everyone for joining from different places all over the world. Today we have our guest speaker and one of the topmost leaders of the solar industry and in the field of microgrid and mini-grid. Mr. Manik who will be addressing us, and also he will be giving you a brief on the business models available, what can be done, how this market can evolve in future, and as well as we will be taking a lot of Q&A from you who are participating and viewing us today. Before we start, and I take Manik to explain on the business models on microgrid and mini-grid. From Greenomix World, we'll just like to tell a little bit about what microgrid and microgrid is a small energy system capable of balancing captive supply and demand resources to maintain stable service within a defined boundary. So that is what is the best basic information about a microgrid and a mini grid. And then there are different types of microgrids like off-grid facility, like then off-grid grid community facilities. There are grid connectivity also, and both communities, centers, and small places that can be utilized for your information. Then Manik Jolie sir will be discussing about off-grid facilities, like where these facilities can be used like in remote areas, then in military bases, mines, isolated industries, how it plays a major role, and what different business models can be implemented in those areas. And also he'll be explaining about community microgrids on remote villages and islands as well, and how it can become a viable implementation, and what are the challenges normally we face. Then also the grid connected business and microgrid models, which Manik Jolie sir will be addressing upon going forward. Then we'll just tell you like microgrid and mini-grid, though it has not came and become a life, mainstream like solar and other wind and other renewables form of energy, where a lot of investment has come from developers, from banking sector. So we are looking and thinking that in the next 5 years time, this microgrid and nanogrid sector is going to really evolve. And if you can see, by 2020, we're thinking like the market will grow to a level of $20 billion. So there is a huge business opportunity and implementation strategy, which also will be explained today. And also, just to give a little brief, there are different kinds of microgrid business models, like customer-owned business model, then microgrid as a service, then pay-as-you-go as a service. So in detail, Mr. Manik Jolie will be explaining the things, and I'll not take much time now, and I'll be handing over the session to Manik Jolie, and he's a veteran in this industry, and we are fortunate enough to have him in the Greenomix World studio. And now let's hear it from Mr. Manik Jolie. Can you hear me, Mr. Manik? Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. And thank you, sir, for coming to the Greenomix World webinar series. And everybody is waiting for your go ahead, and we can go ahead with the things. And as and when you ask for the change in the presentation, I will be doing it and moderating it from you here, and then we'll have a Q&A session after that. Over to you, sir.
Sure. So, firstly, thank you all for inviting me here, and I'll try my best to share whatever limited knowledge I have with all of you, and hope all of us committed to work in energy access are able to improve models and create something that brings electricity. So, can you move to next slide, please, or can I?
Just 1 second. Hello. Yes, sir. Can you see, sir?
Yeah, now I can see it's full screen. So this is just about my intro. I have been working in microgrid space for almost 7 to 8 years now, and uh, I have worked on different models that are AC microgrids, DC microgrids, cluster-based microgrids. And since beginning, I've been proposing that microgrids should not be small in size, but rather they should be scaled up, which can support not only domestic but commercial activities in a village. So we will, talk more about it in detail, and as we proceed with the presentation. Next, please. So this is, Ashish, can I run the presentation myself? Is it possible to change the setting? Because some slides are really small to keep saying next, next. Is it possible?
So, sir, you are then have to share your slide from your screen. So I think you have the presentation with
Okay,
you.
leave it. So, yeah, okay, leave it. Let's move it like this. So as we all know that we have around, although this data says 1.5, but there are data which take the number up to almost 3 billion people who are living without electricity in the world. And if we actually calculate the number of people who are living with limited access to electricity, that is under 6 hours or 8 hours, it is even less. It is even more, the number. We can go up to 3.5 or even 4 billion people, because millions of people across the world are considered electrified because the grid has reached there. But the quality of electricity is an issue that we do not deal with. We never mention, there is no reliable data even available about quality of electricity that people in rural areas get. So aim of microgrid is not just electrifying people, but also take a step ahead and start working on quality of the electricity that is provided. That means proper current and voltage to run appliances, and also the number of hours that they actually have electricity. Yeah, next, please. So this is a microgrid ecosystem that, as I understand, as you see in the center, a microgrid sits, and then there are users on its left, which one can take as a direct connect. If we build a microgrid, it is serving some people. But the related connector as shown by this, although the model looks complicated, but just to explain it a way, that community plays a very important role in microgrids, because the areas which we work are remote, rural. So it is kind of a domain-based solution which has to work on customization for its users. So you can say a user can be a small business owner or a domestic guy. But community as a whole, because of the social differences we have all over the world, it causes us to customize it to what is their need. On right hand side, you can see there is a macro grid. So in macro grid here, we can take an example of a larger IPP, that's individual power producer who could be nearby, or the national or the state grid. This is a long-term plan, that while microgrids are catering for an off-grid society, there is a possibility that they can also get into a PPA, a micro PPA with these macrogrids. What this enables it that in the longer term, when the demand increases, there's a two-way flow of, and if there's a more electricity, we can take it our way. And secondly, if the demand is not being met, the microgrid does not run into a financial loss, and it is able to justify its existence and financial model by feeding into the larger grid. Next is the incentive and constraint makers. These are the problem issue, one can say, because policy, regulation, and here influencers like diesel market. These are the issues that affect this entire ecosystem, because one, microgrids have not been able to establish themselves that strongly as national grid or diesel IPPs. So we have to figure out how to meet this challenge. And on side to next suppliers, that we are talking about manufacturer, project manager, finance provider. So both the bottom ones, although they fall in the ecosystem, but the bottom both topics are actually that are a problem area, because microgrid cannot sustain on the finance and the numbers that are compared when it is compared with rooftop or utility scale models. So when an investor or even a photovoltaic company or a project company or anybody wants to invest into this, they are expecting that kind of returns. But the biggest difference is this is not a solar-based setup. It's a solar-based setup with transmission and distribution, employment, control rooms, distribution network that has appliances in the end. So it makes it a challenging model to to get the same results as one would get in rooftop or something like that. Next. So microgrid business models are mainly divided into I would say three kind of people are working in microgrid space. One would be a for-profit organization like mine. For example, we are a company that sets up microgrids, believe in sale of electricity, quality energy provided to houses and commercial, and we earn on the tariff and the revenue, tariff that we charge and the revenue that we earn. Next is partly subsidized non-profit. So as the definition says, a large portions, if not all, of capital costs are subsidized, but O&M costs are covered through tariff-based revenue system. So let's take an example of government microgrid. In that, they pay for much of the capital cost. To the developer, it becomes partly subsidy. Or a development organization or a large size foundation or a grant that is available, they partner with a developer to pool in some kind of a what is also known as financial world as free money or a grant money. And then what it does is it takes away the pressure on the developer or microgrid operator to recover the cost at a very high return, because the capital cost is taken care of or is majorly taken care of. Hence, in return, they are able to give cheaper electricity to the villagers, and whatever is the revenue coming from that is enough to keep it operationally profitable. So, in nutshell, a capex is not a problem anymore as compared to Model 1, but it has to just maintain its OPEX profitability. And in third model, where it is fully subsidized or non-profit, so here it is not designed to recover capital or O&M expenses. So this is a purely grant model, 100% grant, where foundations or organizations, NGOs or NPOs shed out a large amount of money to not only create a microgrid, but also cover the operational cost for coming years. Most of these cases will always have near free electricity being given to houses because there is no return expected. So, all in all, these are only the three models under which any microgrid business would run. You can pick up any microgrid and it would fit into these three. Most of the issue stands here is most of the microgrids till now have been commissioned into model 2 and 3, whereas in the coming world, it is the model 1 that has to scale up if we need to bring microgrids to most people in the world. So, next. So here we'll just talk about relevance of factors that are determining sustainability for three of these microgrid models. So it's a presentation. I hope it is available to all of you for download, or you can contact them to download and make it available. So I'll not waste time just reading the slide, but the main point behind this slide remains that it's a very simple logic. The higher the pressure on the developer is to recover the cost, there is only one way to recover it, that will be the tariff from the users. There is absolutely no other way. So as the models keep becoming more and more capital oriented, the pressure mostly will be felt by the users. But also keep in mind that we are serving poorest of the poor. It will be ethically wrong if we if we use these microgrids to charge them the tariff that people in urban or commercial areas are paying. So here's the dichotomy, that how do you actually plan this financial model? So a funding or a subsidy from the government can go a very long way in making these models successful. It takes the pressure away from developer a little bit, and we are able to give cheaper electricity to people. Hence, all the stakeholders are happy. In absence of such subsidy, when we talk of pure commercial models, uh, what a microgrid has to bank on is a very big commercial or industrial load. Now, industrial load or commercial loads, they pay industrial or commercial tariffs to any grid. We do not have a concept of peak tariff in India, but the tariff difference comes to what kind of user you are. If you take a commercial or a industrial load, you pay much higher tariff than the domestic. So if a microgrid can actually support a rural industry or a small shop or anything that is paying commercial tariff, or is in case absence of grid using diesel, then a microgrid becomes a very competitive and a low cost solution. But in comparison, it will be much higher than what it will be charging the domestic guy. So for a microgrid, for example, a 10 kilowatt microgrid, an ideal solution would be 8 kilowatt to 8.5 of that going into running commercial and industrial loads, charging high tariffs, but cheaper than government and diesel. Only 10 to 15% of it catering for domestic users that pay very low tariff. This is what balances out the finance and makes a microgrid financially stable. Next, please. Next, please. So here are a couple of operational factors that one can say on the negative side and the positive side. I don't know how this green circle has gone over the text. Sorry about that for someone who made the slide for me. But I'm sure you understand the text. It's operational factors. So let's quickly run through the microgrid operations vicious cycle. So vicious cycle would talk about everything that is negative that makes microgrid fail. So let's say starting from a poor contractor performance. Somebody who takes money, wants to commission a very bad project and just walk away. Ineffective local training. If you do not have a good employee in location that you have chosen from local people, your microgrid will not work. You have to choose somebody from local area, train him, and make sure they do well. Then coming to the main circle, unmet growth, load limit, non-compliance. Unmet growth is your design was faulty. You thought that there will be a lot of demand, but there is none. Most of your electricity is going waste. You're not generating enough revenue. Again, a failure. Load limit, non-compliance. A lot of people make very bad microgrid designs because they don't understand this concept. They leave open circuits. When you leave an open circuit in a non-electrified zone, the first thing people will connect to it is motors as well as these pumps, irrigation pumps. That really destroys the storage as well as the circuitry of the microgrid. Then coming to say theft is a big problem. And people do tend to connect wires, and people do tend to don't pay the bills. That is what causes theft. Underpriced tariffs. If you have not done a good homework into designing tariff model, you will end up designing a revenue system that will not generate a sustainable revenue for you. It is good to be ethical and nice. We are working in an area where we have to cater for the underprivileged, but a model has to sustain itself. Low cost recovery. Low cost recovery is also related to more or less what I just said, that if we have a lot of bad debts, then the micro will not survive. Poor O&M comes from the same point. Efficient operational model. Effective O&M is the backbone of a successful micro. To be honest, anybody can set up a solar power plant. It's not a big deal anymore. But to run it effectively in 20 years, it will be the work of effective O&M plan. Hence, a lot of thought has to go into creating a O&M plan. Poor tariff collection. This can be given to factors that if you have not planned well, how tariff will be collected. there one can be wishful and even progressive when people go for pay as you go and smart metering and all that. But a balance has to be attained between how much are you investing into these IT or ITES enabled services and smart solutions versus how the tariff is being collected. Personally, I believe a human connect of a local person with the users is a very good model. Schedule non-adherence. If you've decided that electricity will run from these many hours to these many hours, and you're not able to maintain that schedule, very soon your batteries will run dry, and the cycle will ensure that batteries are not getting charged. So then there will be no light in the evening when they need it, and slowly it will lead to a very bad cycle, and people will stop paying tariffs, and it will be a fail. And then customer overuse. Same relates to the same thing, that you have to limit the loads. You have to figure out who's using what and make sure to your constant, one, to a good operational routine, and secondly, constant interaction that it's been done. In the center, you see financial non-viability and unreliability stay at center because all these factors lead to these two things. And in the end, the arrow out shows that it ceases to function. The microgrid will fail. On the right side, we have a virtuous cycle, which is exactly opposite to what everything that I just said. So I'll not repeat the same thing again because it's pretty, it is very obvious. So if we take care of all these points, it will lead to a very effective microgrid where all the stakeholders are happy, people are getting electricity when they want, and the developer is able to earn his revenue. Next, please. So this is a model UV filter. Yeah. As I was speaking about the anchor load part of it, the commercial activity that becomes the backbone of a successful solar micro model. Next, please. So we realized that a lot of problem in rural areas are interconnected. If people do not have electricity, they will also not have sanitation, clean drinking water, health access, education, gender rights, and all of much of it can be solved if we are able to create energy platforms in India. But rather than looking, we have to create or look for, we will create a commercial setup that will solve a critical problem. So our microgrids take most of their energy to create a water filtration setup that not only solves a critical problem of clean drinking water, but also provides enough financial capability to the microgrid to be financially stable. Next, please. So this is just some data on what access to safe drinking water through a model can do. Health is obviously the most primary and the critical answer. Contaminated water leads to these many deaths every year. If we can invest into clean drinking water, we are saving billions in future that will go into treating them. Next is rural area. As we know that there's a permanent kind of a dependence in rural areas on groundwater and hand pumps and tube wells. And that water can be as high as 6,000 in TDS, whereas normal human consumption should be under 400 or so. So it is as good as drinking arsenic-laced water or poisoned water. So this has a huge capacity to scale in terms of providing solutions to rural areas. Social, India has a lot of complicated social issues. We believe that if we create a central water point, it will help in creating creating a harmonious and a friendly environment in village also. Because there are places where certain communities are connected to certain water points, and a lot of them are struggling to actually survive because there is so less water for one of the communities. By creating this central point, we will be able to resolve or at least improve on whatever the situation is right now. And last is gender. Women in villages have to walk for miles and permanently when there's a clean drinking water station right in the village. Next, please. Business model. This is a more or less a business model that there is. There's a centralized that we work on. There's a centralized power station that works on one side. It is giving electricity, and on the second side, as a critical load, it works on providing clean drinking water. So, because of our effective modeling, we are able to provide water at $0.04 for 10 liters. We are able to hire a lot of people, give employment to 3 to 5. In some cases, the project we are building at least 15 people in village employment. We also have a delivery model that for houses where there are elderly or too young and they're not able to come to the water, we deliver at their house. So it's very well thought of and planned model. On the electricity side, we are able to give 8 to 12 hours of electricity on all the domestic community places. And we do plan for 50 to 100 watts per household. With each microgrid, we also deploy a digital connectivity plan, that is a solar modem that ensures that the village is digitally connected. Pay-as-you-go meeting is written here, but personally we have not deployed it anywhere. It's one of the options that we can work on. So we are thinking of it. So we might. And then we run a very exhaustive training and awareness program for villages. Next, please. Empower. So these are all the points that the microgrid works on. Women empowerment, access to clean source of energy, which is a critical point right now. Hence, works directly towards mitigating the risk of carbon emissions into the environment. We create a lot of jobs in every village, so that employment leads to better ecosystem, more cash flows, better lifestyle, improved health. If there is electricity, it automatically leads to awareness about health and sanitation. And then there is access to clean drinking water, which compounds the impact that this health issue has. And of course, there's infrastructure development. Through creating a energy source and a transmission network, we are able to create an infrastructure that the village did not have earlier. Next, please. Our projects contribute directly, indirectly to a lot of these SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. I'm not on the enhancement side, and there's a mitigation side. And those are divided into indirect, moderately direct, and very direct. So how each of these SDGs get impacted to this project is obvious here. For example, let's say take the last one, clean and water and sanitation. So it falls in mitigation and very direct, as in we are able to resolve it totally, mitigate the risk of unclean drinking water. And it is a very direct impact. So this is how this microgrid and energy and water solution impacts them. Next, please. So this is about grid. We are like an organization that is working towards creating smart electricity and water solutions in rural areas. We have been doing a lot of projects in a list of all our associations are here. We do, apart from our project commissioning, we do a lot of, we are part of a lot of think tanks and consulting groups where we contribute in terms of knowledge sharing and supporting efforts that other organizations are taking to support their ongoing activities and contribute from our side into achieving the goal. So we can, since we have been project developers, we have a very clear understanding right from the planning phase to the O&M and making and ensuring that the microgrid runs for 15 to 20 years. Next to. These are our achievements. I mean, I shouldn't be talking about it. You can read in your time. Next, please. So our last model was covered in Forbes last year, 2017. That's the highlight here. So we do keep getting a lot of national, international coverage on the innovative work that we do. I would request you all to have a look at that. It will give you more understanding on the work we do. So since next slide is contact us kind of thing, I would like to spend just 2 minutes on something called the microgrids. Basically, an operational model, how they are working. Most important, most common is, as we spoke, one grant-based or subsidized-based or investor-based. That is a model from this side of the line. The other side, in the operational model, they can be divided into something called RESCO. That is in that the developer provides the electricity, believes in the sale of electricity and earns its revenue from that sale. Then it could be customer owned, where you deploy a microgrid for a customer. That could be a village, government, civil authority, foundation, anybody, and hence it becomes owned by them, and the responsibility of and the pressure of earning revenues and making it financially viable is little less. And a lot of microgrids are coming up. People are talking about it. The success of that model is yet to come out. As pay as you go. The complication with pay as you go is it has to have 24/7 access. Then only this model can be defined. If you are limiting electricity to certain hours, you're not giving the freedom to user to use it when he wants, and hence it does not justify pay as you go in a very broad term. But what can happen is that it can be, rather than calling it pay as you go, it can call be a prepaid model in which people pay for those limited hours whenever they get used. So these are some of the models in which work. Example of these would be some of the good microgrids models are Huskpar, which are doing in India. They have very successful model in microgrids, which are work in RESCO model. Then there are organizations which have done customer-based, could be L&Ts doing projects which will be for government, or other organizations have done OMC and all, which they build projects which are government mandated. It's a capex based, and you operate them to earn your thing. And pay as you go hasn't been a thing till now. A pilot here and there does not actually prove a model, so it is still yet to be tested. So that's all from my side for now, because I wanted this to be a more interactive session. So I think questions will bring out more discussion. So let's talk.
So there is just okay. Thank you, Mr. Jolie, for this great insight on a lot of factors which is there, and challenges which are there in microgrid and its implementation. There is one question so what is the complete value chain of establishing one microgrid in a rural area? So from where you will start it, and how you are going to make it a viable business model for if you think of going for a microgrid in a project?
Okay, so to answer that, the first point would be selection of geography. Given the resources you have, given your partners you have, given the focus area in the geography you have, you would first step would always be selecting a geography, as in the village or the rural area that you would be working on. Next would be a baseline survey. You do a detailed survey and work on creating a database on which your solution would be based. Next step would be, once you have a baseline survey, you create a technical design. After you have created a technical design, then would be a financial closure. You gather money, or if you already have money, you put it in a model and see how this fits into the model, into the solution that I'm creating. After you have reached this stage is the time to go for approvals and meet the regulatory authorities to get required approvals. Once that is done, then you get into a engineering-based survey, site surveys, and then you go to ground and start doing a survey and make a project commissioning plan, project plan. Your project management team takes over then, and the procurement of stuff, lead time, ordering, shelf life, all that thing, into transportation, warehousing. But the main point is then you run an entire commissioning and installation process, and you do the commissioning. Meanwhile, you also look for your local employees and run an awareness campaign. So parallelly, these two things can run together. Once the project is finished, then is commissioned, then you get into the operation and maintenance mode and monitoring and evaluation. So this is more or less a timeline-based, microgrid's life from the day you start to plan till the time it is operating. And as it keeps operating, the main things that remain are operating it day-to-day basis, collecting tariff, troubleshooting, meeting with the users, a quarterly, monthly kind of a checkup that is part of your O&M plan, creating connectivity with the developer and the users, and a time-to-time improvement if any required. So that is how a life of microgrid can be broadly defined.
Thank you. There is another question from Mr. Kaushik. He's asking, the main cause of failure of microgrid in India is due to O&M services. And can you just tell me what is happening in every microgrid projects, both government or private? It's happening all the time in India. So that is his query.
So one of operation maintenance failure is because lack of planning in the whole thing. People generally outsource this planning to local O&M vendors, or people or organizations which do not have capability of doing O&M in rural areas. They try to take over without and follow the model which has been going on in utility scale O&M into rural pattern, which does not work. Rural microgrids are in very remote areas, whereas utility projects, even if it is in remote area, because of the size and the investment that has gone into it, will have a O&M team present there all the time. But you cannot deploy a salaried person far away into a village, an engineer or somebody, just to take care of a small microgrid. It will never happen. So this model needs to be redefined as to how we can maintain these microgrids and still keep it a failure. That can happen that if you're doing a microgrid cluster, you can have a central employee that can attend to all time to time. Or you can have a telephone-based, like call centers or helplines, which whenever there's a call, somebody can come from close by, attend to it. And most importantly, would be training local villagers into that village, how they can support these microgrids and how they can run it effectively. This awareness campaign also involves creating a small document or something that you can provide to each household, that gives them basic understanding of what electricity is. This is kind of an infographic training manual or even awareness manual that each household has, and understand that if there is a problem, what they need to do. So you will not have to send somebody from far away because the bulb, electric bulb is not working. It is not a microgrid's problem, but the villager does not know that. But running a little awareness and connecting with the community that you are serving will help you create these effective O&M models. The model has to be very hierarchical in nature. There's a village level employee, and all of these are working with an engineer who's based in the nearby town. That engineer should be in direct connect with your engineers. So depending on the level of problem that the microgrid is facing, a quick turnaround period should be defined and define who will solve it. So if you put in a lot of thought and planning into this, O&M can be very effective.
Okay. There is Ashwini Ashok from C.E.D. India Private Limited, and he's asking, do you think mini-grid under regulation with a tariff cap can be useful for mini-grid?
Sorry, can you please repeat it?
He's asking, do you think mini-grids under regulation with a favorable tariff from the government will be useful for sustaining the mini-grids?
No, may not be now, because when government sets tariffs, it sets for a large electricity business that includes, that is where you have millions of users, and it is subsidized, and it is government is ready to take loss also sometimes. All those things can happen. But in microgrids, you have private developers, small companies, organizations, entrepreneurs who are trying to run this. The models are still under experimentation. So if you regulate it right now, it may or may not fit into the innovation, financial innovative model that people are trying to create. So regulating tariff at this stage is not nice. I firmly believe that people who work in energy access space would be ethically nice enough to keep it the tariff really minimum. So answer would be no. At least I think so.
And he has another question. As Government of India has come up with Saubhagya scheme, and also there is DDU GKY scheme. So how do you think, is it a threat to mini and microgrid business model for a project developer?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know about these schemes. I am not very clear on them, because government keeps coming up with schemes. So which scheme did you say? Can you just repeat again?
Din Dayal Gramin Jyoti Yojana.
Oh, Deen Dayal. Okay, yeah. Okay, of course I know. You should have said the full name. So what government had said earlier, how it's been running, has changed a lot right now. Government is building hundreds and thousands of microgrids as of today. So yes, there's a lot of work going on, but so yes, the scheme is helping a lot. I personally know of 500-600 microgrids that are under project. So it's a very good scheme.
One question, can you explain how microgrid enabling the attractive option for the RPO? Is there anything on the renewable purchase obligation through microgrid enablement?
No, mines only at a aggressive scale can start contributing towards RPOs. Otherwise, the size at which microgrids come, I don't think they can effectively contribute into the RPO, that obligation that the states have. So if a state launches, and anyways, even if at a large level, one of microgrids are commissioned, there will be hardly 1, 2, 3 megawatts for hundreds of microgrids. That is hardly a size that a state can look forward to into its RPOs. So microgrid should not be thought of as a project or a business or a solution that has any RPO support, that can support RPO in any way. That will, it's meant for a totally different reason. and it should continue to be thought of as that.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir. These are all the questions, sir. Then another question is coming up, like how, let's say, one being a project developer, I am installing one microgrid in one rural area, and the government comes and electrify the village with a central grid. Then will it not make it will not affect me?
Yeah, it will affect you, but that is part of the problem solving. Like UP has come up with a policy where microgrids can do PPA with the extended grid. Other states are also coming with it. So in your planning phase only, you have to look at how do I ensure the safety and life of my microgrid once a government plans to extend the grid or something like that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We are now close to the closure, and we think you have actually given a lot of insights on the model, and I will be sharing the whole presentation from Grid with everyone who has participated, as well as if any more question or any business association, if anyone wants to known about, then I will be connecting or they can directly mail to Mr. Manik and Jolie on the same. And thank you very much for having a great interactive session with today. And thank you. And on the Agronomics World webinar series, next we are coming up with energy storage and EVs technology trends and what the future holds. Kindly log in and sign up, and also we'll be discussing on renewables in Africa and what are the future investment opportunities coming forward. So from the Genomics One studio, thank you everyone, and we'll be signing out from for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Good, good. Hello. Sir, can you hear me?